It started with a photograph. A blurry, unplanned shot taken in a slant of morning light. And if not for that single frame, no one might have ever known what was happening inside the apartment across the alley. Ethan Cole was 34, a freelance photographer living alone in downtown Portland. His apartment wasn't glamorous, cracked brick walls, rattling pipes, and windows that shivered with every passing bus, but he liked it. It had character, and the view across the narrow alley always caught the morning light in just the right way. From his window, he could see into the opposite building, not deliberately, not in a creepy way. It was just part of the scenery. One gray November morning, he was testing a new telephoto lens for a client, adjusting exposure and focus, when he noticed a woman sitting by the window across the alley. She was pale, maybe in her 30s, long dark hair falling around her shoulders. She wasn't doing anything, just sitting, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. He took a few shots, testing sharpness. Later, when he uploaded them, something about her expression unsettled him. Her eyes weren't focused on anything. They looked empty. He told himself it was nothing. Probably caught her mid-blink. Or maybe she was just zoning out. That night, her apartment was dark. Curtains drawn. Then, a few days later, it happened again. Rain hammered the windows, and around midnight, Ethan looked across the alley, and froze. The same apartment. Lights on this time. The woman was back. Same seat. Same clothes. Same posture. He raised his camera, zoomed in, and that's when he saw it. A figure standing behind her. Barely visible in the shadows. He blinked, refocused, and the figure was gone. He laughed nervously. Told himself it was a reflection, a trick of the light. But something about it wouldn't leave his mind. By the next morning, he was staring out the window again. The curtains were open now, but the woman was gone. What caught his eye instead was a smudge on the glass. A handprint. Pressed flat against the inside. Days passed. The handprint stayed. And still, no sign of the woman. He tried to focus on his work, but he couldn't. Eventually, he opened the earlier photos again, side by side, the ones from the first day, and from the night he saw the shadow. That's when he noticed it. The woman's expression hadn't changed at all. Not her eyes, not her mouth, not even a shift in her shoulders. They were identical. He zoomed in further. Same lighting. Same position. She wasn't moving because she couldn't. A cold wave rolled through him. Still, he told himself he needed proof before panicking. So, at dusk, he set up his tripod and pointed his lens at the opposite window once more. He waited. As darkness settled, most apartments lit up, people cooking dinner, watching TV, living their lives. But that one window remained dim. Then, movement. Someone stepped into view, but it wasn't her. A tall man, thin, wearing a gray sweatshirt. He moved slowly, dragging something heavy across the floor. Ethan lifted his camera and took 2 quick shots. The man stopped. Looked up. For one terrifying second, their eyes met through the lens. Ethan ducked down, heart pounding. When he looked again, the apartment was dark. Curtains drawn. He couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made him flinch. By morning, he'd convinced himself to call the police. But what was he supposed to say? That he saw someone through a camera lens dragging a bag that might contain a body? He hesitated, until he checked the photos again. The man was clear this time. And the bag, the outline inside it was unmistakably human. His stomach turned. He dialed the non-emergency line. An officer arrived that evening, listened, looked at the photos. He frowned, said he'd take a look. They left, and Ethan waited by his window until long after midnight. The next morning, the apartment across the alley was empty. Completely cleared out. No furniture, no curtains, nothing. It was as if no one had ever lived there. That's when the real fear started. He went back through his photos again, desperate for answers. And in the very first picture, the one from that first morning, he noticed something he hadn't before. In the reflection behind the woman's chair, a faint shape. A man. Standing in the doorway. The realization hit him like ice. The man had been there from the start. Ethan tried not to think about it, but that night, as he sat in the dark, his heart almost stopped when he saw a flash. A camera flash. From across the alley. He turned his head slowly. The opposite window was pitch black, except for the glint of a lens pointing straight at him. Someone was taking his picture. He dove for the switch, killed the lights, crawled away from the window. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. No words. Just a photo. Of him. Standing by his own window. Timestamp, 1 minute ago. He called 911, voice shaking, told the dispatcher someone was watching him. Officers arrived within minutes. They searched his place, shined flashlights across the alley. But the opposite apartment was dark and empty. They told him it was probably a prank. Suggested he block the number and close his curtains. But one officer, a woman, seemed unsettled by the photos. She said she'd checked the tenant records for that building. 2 days later, she called back. "Mr. Cole," she said carefully, "are you sure about the apartment number? Because according to the building manager, that unit's been vacant for 3 months." Ethan went silent. "That can't be right," he said. "I've got pictures. I saw someone there. I saw him." "I believe you," she said. "But whatever you're seeing, it's not happening in that apartment." That night, he stayed away from the window. Sat in darkness, waiting for morning. But the silence felt heavier than the noise. Then another text came. 4 words. "Nice shots, neighbor." That was the last anyone heard from Ethan Cole. 3 days later, police entered his apartment after neighbors reported a smell. His camera was still on the tripod, facing the window. The memory card held hundreds of images, all of the same empty apartment across the alley. Except in the last sequence, the camera angle had shifted, turned slightly inward, toward his own room. The final photo was of Ethan himself. As if someone had taken the picture from inside his apartment. To this day, no one knows who lived, or still lives, in that apartment across the alley. Some say it's been empty for years. Others swear they've seen a flicker of light there late at night, like a camera flash behind the glass. But maybe the scariest part isn't who was watching Ethan. It's that, in cities like Portland, where buildings stare into each other like mirrors, you never really know who's watching you. Or what might already be looking back.